Good afternoon and welcome to Thursdays in Black and my daily reflection. On a personal note, since I started being aware of the Thursdays in Black campaign, I've also had my consciousness alerted to all of the stories of human trafficking and domestic violence that take place. Most likely because I'm thinking about it. Like a week or so ago, a story out of Minneapolis of a mother and father who have started a foundation in the name and to honor their daughter, who was killed by the daughter's husband after less than a year of marriage. Hearing that story, my heart ached for the parents, the friends of the victim. It's just not right or good, and we need to be aware of it. So I'm asking all of us to pay attention and hear clearly stories that are being told to us. And if there's an opportunity to be an advocate for a victim, please take that chance and be the advocate. For those of you who are church calendar nerds, today is the Feast of the Ascension. It's 40 days after Easter, and Jesus has taken his disciples out into the country to the Mount of Olives, where he stands and is raised to go to heaven. Or, as one of the popular memes floating around on social media says, today is the day that Jesus started working from home. I'll have more about the Ascension story on Sunday's worship service. So there's a teaser to come to worship Sunday morning, 9:30 a.m. here on Facebook, or who knows what time it finally gets posted on the YouTube channel. Still a frustration to me. As I told you earlier this week, I'm also attending the Luther Seminary's Festival of Homiletics, all of it online. It's wonderful to be able to sit in my office and participate in a different way, to listen to great preachers and teachers and lecturers about preaching and the importance of sharing God's word. Today, I was blessed by a rather different kind of sermon from Pastor Lenny Duncan, who describes himself this way: I'm the unlikeliest of pastors. He dropped out of high school, spent time in prison, and then changed his life. He graduated from United Lutheran Seminary, which I think I knew with a different name, Gettysburg Lutheran Seminary, back when I was there. And Pastor Lenny is now the pastor of Messiah Lutheran Church in Vancouver, Washington. He titled his sermon this morning, Awaiting the God Who Answers. And he used Habakkuk chapters 1 and 2 as the text. So let me offer you a little background on Habakkuk, one of the minor prophets of the Old Testament material. Just 3 chapters long, and that's about all the material you know about. We have no idea who he was, no lineage, no really known date, but the assumption is sometime during the time of captivity in Babylon, which would be about 600 to 580 before the Common Era. But the prophet clearly speaks through the questions he asks. Here is part of the text from Habakkuk, beginning in chapter 1. O Lord, how long shall I cry for help, and you will not listen? Or cry to you violence, and you will not save? Why do you make me see wrongdoing and look at trouble? Destruction and violence are before me. Strife and contention arise. I will stand at my watchpost and station myself on the rampart. I will keep watch to see what he will say to me and what he will answer concerning my complaint. The end of Habakkuk's writing, or at least for this time. And it was from those words that Pastor Lenny echoed his own questions about God's voice when he was crying for help. Where was God, he asked, as he stood at his watchpost, his living room, during this time of isolation? Where was God in the midst of all the struggles? Habakkuk also asked why God allowed the wicked to seemingly have more than those more righteous. Seems to me that's the age-old question of why do the bad ones always seem to win and the good ones always seem to lose. I remember back in the 1980s, there was a TV show that worked on that question as well. Two brothers in Texas was the theme, sons of an oil baron, and they became oil barons themselves. Brother J.R. wore a 10-gallon hat. Sometimes it was white, and sometimes it was a black hat. And Bobby, his younger brother, never seemed to wear a hat at all. Guess which one was the good guy? And guess which one always seemed to win out? Until the end. Because of course Bobby, the good one, wins in the end after suffering so many setbacks. The TV show Dallas was indeed must-see TV on Friday night. There were Dallas watch parties, and I was part of that group. Pastor Lenny's sermon also included him shouting at God, asking, "Where are you when we needed you the most? Where are you now that your people are scattered and not able to join in worship? Where are you, God, when your people need to have the physical presence of togetherness? Where are you when you're scattered and afraid people are looking for connections?" With each of those questions, his voice got louder. And imagine the shouting at God. I was drawn into those questions, as they are mine as well. Perhaps they're yours too. And then, like Habakkuk, Lenny brought his sermon home with the knowledge that God not only listens, even when we raise our voices in frustration, but also responds, and more importantly, shows up. For Lenny, God shows up with the arms of mercy and care. God shows up as the ministry takes place at Messiah Lutheran, a community reaching out to those who are on the margins of society, those who have been pushed out or walked away from other faith communities. God shows up for them and for Lenny. God shows up for you and me, even though we have not been marginalized by society. God shows up was how Lenny's sermon ended. God shows up. Good news for us. Thanks be to God for Luther Seminary trying something different this year. Thanks be to God for Pastor Lenny Duncan. Thanks be to the God who shows up. So therefore, I expect you to show up on Sunday, because I know God will be here. As well, God will be in your homes as you worship from afar. But of course, remember, please, wash your hands. You know the drill. A couple times a day, 20 seconds at a time, warm water. All of those things you learned as a kid. Stay home if you're not feeling very well. Practice that important social distancing. And of course, be safe out there. Be careful out there. See you Sunday.